Good morning. Today I'm going to teach you how to sew a buttonhole and then also how to attach a button a couple of different ways. I have a square of fabric that I'm going to use to sew a buttonhole onto, and I have a square of fabric that I'm going to actually sew the button to. They're going to attach and go into your book beautifully, and it's going to be very nice. Let's start by turning on our machine, and we're going to find the buttonhole foot, and mine is right here. It should look like this, and if you can just hold on a second, I'll grab a button. I have a whole bin of all kinds of crazy buttons that I've gotten at estate sales and funny places like that, jars of them. I even have a string of buttons that came as ribbon on Anthropology packages one Christmas, and they're pretty, and I don't know, I'm holding on to them for something, but this is what I wanted to show you. I got it at Joann's, and I don't know, it's 10 ounces of buttons, so I couldn't tell you how many, but probably if you need a colored button, you're going to find it in here. And it was super cheap, and I got it with a half off coupon. In fact, I think it's actually half off without a coupon right now. So if you're looking for a ton of buttons, or 10 ounces of buttons, this is a good example. I'm going to grab a button out of here and we'll get started. Okay, I went with a big-ish green button. I don't know, it's about 3/4 of an inch, almost an inch wide. Whoa, and I just threw it. So what we're gonna do with our little buttonhole foot, and this is a pretty standard foot. It should come with your machine, but even from foot to foot, they're gonna look about the same. This part here slides open. I'm gonna back you up a little bit. This part here slides open, and you can stick your button in there and just kind of get it snug in there. This is magical because it's going to make sure your buttonhole is exactly the right size for your button. It makes it a little bit bigger so that it can fit through, but this is the measuring and the accuracy is done for you, so congratulations. All right, we are gonna stick it in the chain, which means I need to take off my J-foot, and I need to stick on the buttonhole foot to kind of lift my presser foot, and then I like to just hit the little button in the back, the little lever, and I'm gonna turn the light off so you can see better. I like to just hit the lever and hold it to open, and then just lower my presser foot onto it, and that picks it up. So I've got my buttonhole foot installed. Now the only other thing I need to do is lower this guy, the buttonhole lever, I think it's called, buttonhole arm perhaps. Anyway, this is going to be the thing that as we travel, because we made that distance, let me show you again. Because we made this distance here, the lever is going to travel from here to here and know to stop and know to come back. So if our button is this big, our buttonhole is going to be that big. Don't we feel magical? Alright, so I'm sticking it back in and we can keep going. Now if you did the shirring tutorial yesterday and have elastic bobbin thread loaded into your machine right now, take it out. Make sure you get your regular cotton thread back in there, and then also don't forget, if you followed the green screw tightening part of the tutorial, make sure you unscrew your green screw again so that it's the right tension for just normal sewing. In fact, before you get going too far with the buttonholing, I would make sure that your straight stitch is how it should be right now, just to make sure you've got all your settings back to normal. Okay, and now turn the machine back on, and I'm going to set my settings for buttonhole. My buttonhole settings here, and oh no, it's there, and your buttonhole settings, I don't know if that's hard to see or not. Your buttonhole settings may be different. You may have a little knob to turn or something up here, and I'm sure you have at least one buttonhole option, sometimes more. I'm just going to do a standard machine buttonhole. It's just going to be rectangular. My length of buttonhole is already set, but I can do some adjustments. Now right here my stitch length is set to 0.4. If I want my stitches of my buttonhole to be closer together, just more compact, and I kind of like them to be, I actually lower my stitch, well, usually to about a 0.3. You can do that or not do that, and this is your day to kind of mess with that and figure it out. I wouldn't mess with stitch width, I wouldn't mess with tension, just keep them at the standard places. Stitch width is going to be funny because needle position is going to be moving around as you do your buttonhole. So I would only mess with stitch length. If anything, I would make it less, and then also just make sure your tension and your stitch width are just at standard locations. So let's see. We've got our buttonhole foot in, we've got our settings right, we have our regular bobbin thread in, and we made sure that our tension is right. So the next thing is to mark our fabric. Hold on a second. Okay, so typically you would need a mark on your fabric. Get this out of the way. And this would come from the pattern generally, but we aren't focusing on pattern right now. We're actually just focusing on just making the buttonhole. But the mark on your fabric should be, let's say if we make this mark right here, that is going to be the bottom of the buttonhole. That's going to be where it starts, and it's going to go back from there. So if you make your mark here, assuming that it's the top of your buttonhole, it's not going to travel this way. So make sure that you mark where the bottom of your buttonhole is going to be and know that it's going to travel this way. So we can get it up here. I'm going to turn my light off again. And that's kind of dark. Alright, here's the thing. There are little, there we go. There are little green and red kind of crosshairs on your buttonhole foot, and that should be standard. And then so what I want to do is line up my crosshairs with my little dot, my little mark, and then I want to make sure that my fabric is square on the machine so that it's not going to be a wobbly-jawed buttonhole. So I'm going to turn my machine back on because even though the light makes it harder to see, it's got to be there. So I am ready because I've got my little dot lined up with my crosshairs, and I'm going to readjust my stitch length to how I had it, make sure my buttonhole is on. Okay, and now what you should be able to do is drop that, whoops, lower the buttonhole lever. Oh, how embarrassing, I've forgotten that. Okay, anyway, lower your buttonhole lever and let it do its magic. So just hold down your pedal with your foot and watch it travel. And actually, I haven't done anything different with my foot. It's just slowing itself down, tying off the loose end, and all I need to do is trim my thread and take it out. There's my buttonhole. Now, my little tail thread looks like it got caught up in there, so I need to trim that. And, yay, I'm gonna turn this light off. A pretty pink buttonhole, and it's straight on the fabric, and it looks like I started it just where I put that dot, so that's good news. And now I'm going to show you how to open this up and actually make it a hole. Okay, now we're going to open up the buttonhole. Ooh, but first, look, this is my view out of my sewing window. That is the new swing set that we just built. That is a complete side note, but those are some happy things in my sewing room right now. I don't know, sorry. Okay, so we're gonna open up the buttonhole, and woo, my camera's gonna fall. There are a couple ways to do this. I have my own opinion. One suggestion if you're new to opening up buttonholes is to stick a pin across the top and even the bottom if you want. That's kind of going to be your little stop, your little breaks, so you don't accidentally snip through here. You can do that at the bottom too if you want. I have very sharp snips. This is my happy way to open a buttonhole. But I think that a good way to start it is with a seam ripper. And so I usually just kind of get started right down here in the bottom. Just enough to make a little hole. I don't know, I feel like I'm in less control with the seam ripper. So I like to move to my snips as much as possible. Wow, that is not a sharp seam ripper. And so now that I've made a little hole, I can just kind of snip through. And I can't possibly go further because I have that needle there. Cheers. So take this out, and I've got this hole now, and it's pretty. Now, I would say, especially as a beginning sewist, make your buttonhole thread the same color as your fabric, because then any imperfections are going to be less noticeable. But on the other hand, buttonholes are pretty much machine made, so imperfections are hard to come by. You can see up close, maybe, I did make my stitch length a little shorter, so these stitches are closer together rather than being further apart. I just think it makes it sturdier, so that's why I go down one notch on my stitch length. And then here is my button, and it fits perfectly through, so that's good. And now we're going to move on to attaching the button to our fabric.